So yes, you guys know what time it is. It is time to talk about all things Crimson Desert, more like Crimson Dessert, because this looks absolutely delicious every single time I see this game. I get so excited. But yeah, we also do have some really exciting news heading into launch here. Plus, if you're wondering about long-range combat using your archery skills, some really cool demonstrations for that one. And fist weapons, are they confirmed or not? Are they coming to Crimson Desert? That's a great question. We're going to go over it. And the comparison, the graphical comparison from 2024 up until this point. So have we seen a graphics downgrade or upgrade? We're going to go over that in detail. Plus, yes, the map displays a lot of the skills right out of the gates. We're going to talk about some controversy regarding this, whether this is a good sign or a bad sign regarding exploring the world. We're also going to be talking about, yes, how the game controls, because we have some really in-depth examples here as to how this works with combinations and stuff you could do, some really cool stuff, plus some more in-depth information right here about the faction system, how it works. This is the sort of thing that gets me very hyped. Now, what about this weird controversial feature in the game that's stirring up some conversation because it's being compared to like having TikTok brain, if you're going to use it or not, why they even include this feature in the game. So yeah, we're going to go over that. Plus, Crimson Desert's Will Powers says Pearl Abyss is trying to avoid overhyping the game. So they're going to talk about that and also some regrets about announcing the game so early. And you're going to need to clear some space for this game. But how much space are you going to need for Crimson Desert? Plus, there's some really cool video showing the dynamic nature of the world. Some people have been concerned that it looks like there's not much interaction with NPCs. Well, we're going to clear the air about that one today. All right, so we're going to start from the very beginning right here. Check it out. So Crimson Desert has entered the top 5 most wish-listed games on Steam. Hell yes. And it just keeps climbing also on the pre-order chart as well. So that is really cool. And if this game gets enough support, I would think that that would mean that, yeah, we would get some high quality expansion, some really good updates down the road. Now, I wanted to highlight this. You guys might be wondering, hey, you know, can you go like all in with archery skills? And that was a great question from the last video. I said, I don't know. It seems like more of a melee focused game. Well, I'm not too sure now. It looks like you could do some absolutely crazy stuff here. Look at this move right here. The amount of absolute damage you can cause, that right there gets me super hyped for the various types of things you could do with an archery class. This looks absolutely freaking wild. So I cannot wait to hop in here and have like a build that is kind of like maybe a jack of all trades, perhaps, that can do a wide variety of stuff, because yeah, that looks absolutely sick. Remember, you're going to be exploring the world. You're going to be finding a lot of the equipment that you're going to be upgrading throughout your journey. So that's one way you're going to be, you know, building your character instead of this traditional level up experience type system. Now, a lot of you guys are wondering, hey, Robbie, what about fist weapons? Are they confirmed or not? So this was highlighted right here. You can see the weapon wheel, and you can see gauntlets, like, you know, fist type weapons as it seems. Now, he says this, I was watching Craig's new video today and noticed some fist such weapons in the heavy weapon slot on the combat wheel. Looks like everyone who wants to play a wrestling monk style build will be happy about that. And someone also noted right here, there was a YouTuber who fought a boss that had drills as weapons. You equip that drill and drill people to death. Pretty insane. But what's going on with like the fist-based weapon? I mean, from this footage right here from JTX Man, I'm only going to show a little bit of a clip here. You can clearly see, yeah, there are fist weapons in this game, and it looks absolutely badass. I'm going to try to throw the full gameplay link in the description below so you can check it out for yourself. But you know, when I saw that, I was absolutely thrilled that there are like fist-based weapons, considering, you know, wrestling moves are going to be a thing in this game. And it's just one other element that adds more variety to the experience, especially if they're expecting us to play this game for 100+ hours. You're going to want to experiment with a lot of different weapons, maybe different builds and stuff like that. Now, moving on, a big discussion is, has this game seen a graphics downgrade, upgrade? I think it's pretty apparent that the game is absolutely beautiful. Well, I have really good news. It has seen an actual graphics upgrade throughout its development. Let's zoom it in. It's beyond impressive what they have done here, of course, with the lighting engine, the level of detail, even with the hair. The outfit even looks like they put a lot more attention to detail with that. as well. Even like the sword, in my opinion, looks better in the 2026 version. And a lot of people noted the lighting engine has also been improved. So this is kind of a rare thing to see happen. But yeah, there's also something players have noticed from previous gameplay demonstrations up to this point, which some people want to actually return. So check it out. Something I noticed in recent previews is that Swords of Cliff's hip are no longer sheathed, but they were in previous previews. I wonder why they removed them. It's small and inconsequential, but it had me wondering. Now, someone did say it might actually depend on the weapon. That's how it works in other games, but I've heard this mentioned time and time again. I really hope that they have the weapons where you can see them sheathed. That would be really, really cool. And even that cinematic that you saw just then, his weapon was clearly not sheathed. Now, another game that I can think of that had this issue, and it is not a melee-based game, well, kind of, it actually can be in some cases, is Space Marine 2. I remember you can actually see the weapons on like his belt, and it was really, really cool on his back and everything like that. They did eventually get rid of that for Space Marine 2. So it's one of those details that I wish they could have returned in the game for sure. I think it would be really, really cool. Now, I want to talk about one thing when exploring the game that you guys may or may not like. Let me know your take on this one. So we have learning skills. Now, as I have said previously, you're going to go out into the world and get new skills through various methods. I hope it's not redundant. That's going to be like one of my biggest concerns when we finally get our hands on the game. But check it out. So he says this, how do you guys feel about the map just revealing where to find a lot of the skills? I feel like it would have been more fun to discover them on your own. And you can see how it actually, like when you highlight over it, it tells you what you will get as a reward, which is actually pretty cool. It makes it so you can go after what you want to grab instead of it being completely random and you miss out on a skill that you really, really want at the beginning of the game and you acquire at the end of the game, which would be a bummer for sure. And there are some opinions about this. They got to give us a little help or this would be a 7,000 hour game. I think, yeah, a little bit of direction can be nice. And again, another game that you guys know that I love, well, it's a franchise, it's the Ghost franchise, Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yotei. They really do kind of let you know and project what type of rewards you will be receiving based on what type of side activity you are doing. And it allows you to kind of chase what you want to go after, which I think is really, really important. And it makes like the front end of the game loaded up with what you want in terms of gameplay features, weapons, and that sort of thing, instead of you having to be like, well, what is going on? Where do I find, you know, the flaming sword or what have you? I really need that. I really want that right now. Well, in Crimson Desert, it looks like you can go chase after what you really, really want at first. But interestingly, I do want to say something that is actually partially true because if you head back to the map, you do have to remember that the map is going to have enemies that don't scale with you. So certain regions of the map will be far more challenging at the beginning of the game for sure until you actually find out where you need to go. So that's actually one thing that you do have to consider when you are actually going after those type of rewards, which is going to be interesting. Now, I want to talk about, yes, the controls, because we have an actual controller layout here. You can pause the screen if you guys want to, but you can kind of see how in some ways the controller does mirror, you know, I suppose you would say the Soul series, where it's mapped to the trigger buttons here for strong attack and weak attack. But there's actually some really cool details here. If we get into the nitty gritty about how the controls actually work, here are some of the details. The game is not afraid of a little violence with blood splatter aplenty. L1 blocks attacks, L2 loads up your bow or gun, whereas R1 and R2 deal light and heavy attacks respectively. Holding both R1 and R2 together unleashes a wider, more destructive attacks that can be imbued with a variety of elements. Okay, finally, L1 and R1 together will trigger an attack that switches between your two chosen weapon sets. I love that. That right there. I love having a move that instantly gets to your other weapon. I think that is absolutely fantastic news right there and going to make the flow of combat feel a lot better. Next up, we have mid-attacks flow. This weapon swap attack saw me using a spear to vault towards the enemy with a kick and then follow up with my sword attacks. I love that. Dude, that one detail right there tells me how detailed the weapon system actually will be in this game. And it kind of actually reminds me a little bit of Where Winds Meet. I've been playing that. They have a move in there where you can switch between both weapons, and it just adds so much to the flow of combat. It makes it more seamless between your two weapons. But they do note this right here, that below the surface, you can further modify your attacks by combining the triggers with face buttons, holding pairs of face buttons, as well as all the positional tomfoolery you could pull off. Most impressively of all, attacks chain together effortlessly in a dance of player-made combos that feel reminiscent of Geralt's dance of swordplay in The Witcher 3. Now, aside from a boss fight I'll mention later, the combat camera is smart enough to know who you're attacking via an intuitive soft lock with cliff closing distances as he glides and, you know, deals blows among a group of folks. So yeah, that is very, very cool. And this article, by the way, comes from wellplayed.com. I want to source them, of course, but they have further details about the faction system, and also they go on to describe how certain NPCs or even entire towns will not let you in based on the outfit that you're wearing. So if you're wearing something that is going to make you look like basically a hobo, I guess you would say, they'll be like, hey, you're not allowed in this town. You need to, you know, have something that is more appropriate for our town or city, or they might even do that for more richy districts or what have you. Now, this reminds me a lot of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, that intro. You guys may remember that, where they tried to get access to a certain area, and because of what they were wearing, they just were not allowed in, which is actually a really, really realistic gameplay mechanic, of course. But anyway, yeah, it looks like appearance will have an absolute critical role on what you can and cannot access in the game. I'm kind of curious to see if there are certain specific outfits that also allow you access to really specific locations, certain buildings, you know, faction buildings, that sort of thing, which would be very cool. Now, there's also one feature here that's kind of like stirring up a conversation. It says, it isn't TikTok brain. Crimson Desert's fast forward button lets you speed through dialogue, and people have plenty to say about it. Now, let's get into this, into the details. So, ex-Twitter user Jake Lucky posted footage of fast forward in action showing how it speeds up dialogue and cutscenes in a tweet viewed over 1.1 million times. One of the features I really like in Crimson Desert is you can fast forward through dialogue while still being able to understand the context. It's not a jump skip, but it is a time save. Now, this got quite a bit of reaction from people like, oh, you know, that's actually pretty cool. But get this, some people actually reacted negatively to the feature. You're playing an RPG, but you're happy you can skip the dialogue, said one person. I like to play an FPS, but can we have a button that lets me skip the shooting? And then we also have, hey, when you only got 5 hours to play, it sure is nice, but not every dialogue was something I needed the full story on, like rescuing a cat off a roof. That was Lucky's response. To each their own. Let me know your take on this. Do you think this should be an option or not? I could see it being actually very useful for maybe like a second playthrough, or maybe a character or a quest line that you're not particularly interesting is droning on and on and on. And you're like, okay, I got to get past this point. I want to get to something that I am actually interested in. Yeah, that can actually be valuable for sure when it comes to a time-saving mechanic. But if you're going to be using that right out of the gates, yeah, I feel like you're going to be playing the game wrong for sure. That would be an absolute bummer to miss out on the details. I myself, I like to slow down the game anymore whenever I'm playing whatever it is to really take in the story. I even put my phone somewhere where I cannot access it so I can really take in the immersion and not be distracted whatsoever. It's such a bummer if I'm like, I catch myself sometimes with my phone in my hand, there's dialogue going on, and it can really ruin the experience I've learned. So I've learned, again, to get the phone away, focus in on the story, really immerse yourself in a game like this. Now, also we have this. Crimson Desert's Will Powers says Pearl Abyss is trying to avoid overhyping the game so players don't think it's the second coming. So my question for you guys about this one is, do you think Crimson Desert was actually announced too soon? Now, there seems to be some regrets about that from this article. You know, Will Powers also says that, yeah, they kind of regret announcing it so soon. There's been a lot of hype around this, and they're also trying to basically control that hype very carefully. And that is, again, one of the reasons why they're very, very clear about saying whether or not this is a full-blown RPG. And they're kind of being very clear with their communication, which I say kudos to the dev team. Kudos to how they're communicating with that for sure. But, you know, you're probably also asking yourself, hey, Rob, don't you have those details about how much space I'm going to need when it comes to actually installing this game and playing it? So yeah, let's get into that. You're probably wondering. So check this out. You're going to need, of course, 135 gigabytes of free space, at least according to the official PC requirements. It's a pretty hefty game. And you got to remember that there might be a day one patch as well. So yeah, that's things that you have to be considered, but I think it's totally worth it. And I do wonder if they're going to have like HD texture packs or something like that on top of everything. So we'll see. But again, I think it is going to be totally worth the install. Now, in the case of like something like Call of Duty, which went over like 200 gigabytes, I think at one point on the PS5, that's absurd. I'll uninstall that. That's taking up too much space on purpose, so you can't have other shooters installed on your hard drive. That's like a Monopoly type BS thing. Thankfully, they have addressed that with Call of Duty. But yeah, in this case, yeah, I'm down for the 135 gigabyte install, especially if it means that it helps optimization, helps the game run better or something like that. Now, I want to talk about this one. You know, there's been some worries from some of the gameplay that people are seeing that it seems like the NPCs just stand around. They don't react. They don't do anything. But this was a really cool little detail. Just saw this video where an NPC kid took a huge tumble. There he goes right there. That type of detail is awesome. It looks like he kind of like climbed the wall and did a little tumble. I hope we see a lot of those little details as you explore in the game world and venture into these like cities. Of course, we do know you'll be meeting other, you know, NPCs even outside of cities and helping them along the way. Kind of like Red Dead Redemption 2. But yeah, I absolutely love that little detail right there. All right, so yes, now it's time to go over your top comments. Remember, as always, leave a comment down below. It could end up in a future video, so let's do this. All right, so here we go. Why do so many people use the term won't be for everyone? There's not one game in history that was for everyone. LOL. Yeah, I've seen that time and time again thrown around. And I think it's kind of like a warning to people that are going into this expecting this to be like The Witcher 3 with a complete leveling system, bad choices, good choices. I think that's kind of the thing that statement is saying right there. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about puzzles. So we have players who don't like to solve puzzles can consult the internet. There will be guides to solve them for sure. And I thought to myself, you know, maybe that's also one of the reasons why Pearl Abyss has given out review copies so early, so those guides can exist right out of the gates, making the game a smoother experience. Perhaps they've gotten feedback internally and from these recent playtests that, some of these people are struggling with the puzzles. And of course, that can be a subjective thing, a personal thing, and some others might not at all. But yeah, it's going to be nice to have guides out on day one. I think that is actually going to happen because it looks to me that we're going to have some of these YouTubers actually finish the game before it even releases. Hopefully they don't spoil too much. All right, so we have, I'm confident, only 14 days left. Hell yes, I'm counting down the days over here. No fall damage. Then later, the footage shows him launching off a tree and dying to fall damage. Yeah, I think fall damage is going to be a thing in this game. You guys have corrected that one several times. So yeah, I think that's going to be the case. Also, why the hell would a game being too big be a problem? My steak is just too juicy. If I spend $70 on a game and play it for years, that's an awesome investment of fun. Hell yes. I think when you have a game that's too big and too overwhelming and too convoluted, that's where things can become a bit of an issue. Of course, if it's not communicated correctly, things like tutorials. But then again, you know, you have games like Elden Ring where it's not handholdy at all. And that's part of the joy. That's part of the experience, is learning the game and dying and coming back and getting better. So yeah, it can actually be a really, really good thing. And we have this one, nothing can stop what is coming. We're jumping off the cliff together. I love it. I love it. And then we also have, it seems like it has elements of all overworld games today. Looks sick to me. I just can't wait to hop into this one. I'm getting super hyped. All right, so there it is. The latest happenings around Crimson Desert. As always, thank you guys so much for the love and support. Stay tuned here for more news and updates. I have you guys covered. And I will see you all next time. Take care.